that the royal family will travel to the US to celebrate America's 250th birthday. Prince William.
Appearances where he's laughing with children or whatnot. William does seem very angry recently, and there have
now Princess Catherine has spoken out about letting go, or learning to let go, I should say, of what's no longer needed. And
the royal family dropped the news they're coming to America, and guess whose names are nowhere on the guest list? Harry and Meghan got slammed with the most brutal snub of their lives, and honestly, it's about to get way worse. What happened next basically destroyed their reputation and left the Sussexes looking completely irrelevant. Stick around because this story gets wild. Before we dive in, hit that like and subscribe. You're going to want to see how ugly this gets. Turn on notifications because we're only scratching the surface. So here's what happened. The royal family came out with this massive news drop about heading to the United States next year.
Private jet parked at a quiet little airfield in California and a single passenger walking up the steps with a duffel bag.
America's celebrating its 250th birthday, and the palace decided they're going all in with not one, but two separate tours spread across several months. Big deal, right? Completely huge media event, the kind that takes months of planning, involves tons of coordination, and becomes the talk of every newsroom in the country. We're talking about the kind of royal visit that doesn't happen often, the type that gets wall-to-wall coverage and has everyone from fashion magazines to top news networks scrambling to cover every angle. But here's where it gets interesting, and honestly, where the whole thing takes a turn nobody saw coming. When the official list dropped, people immediately started doing what they always do, scanning through the details, checking the guest names, looking at who's coming, who's involved, what the schedule looks like, all the usual stuff you'd expect.
Nearly 6 years disrespecting both parties involved here. At one point, they accused the royal family of racism, and Harry once said,
Royal watchers were combing through every word, trying to figure out the logistics and who'd be representing the family. And that's when everyone started noticing something totally wild. Something that seemed impossible at first, like it had to be a typo or some kind of error in the press materials. Harry and Meghan's names weren't there, like anywhere. Not buried in the fine print at the bottom, not mentioned as a possibility or a potential addition, not even hinted at in some vague family members will participate kind of language that usually gets thrown around. They were simply absent from every single part of the plan. Total radio silence. Their names didn't appear in any capacity whatsoever. Now, at first, plenty of people thought it could be an oversight, Could be one of those things where more details would come later, or they'd get added to the plans once things got finalized, or someone on the palace communications team simply forgot to include them in the initial press release.
Looks like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will be iced out. What more can you tell me?
well,
Innocent mix-up, right? But nope, that's not what happened. As more information started coming out over the next few hours and days, it became crystal clear this wasn't any kind of mix-up or accidental omission. This was intentional. The palace knew exactly what they were doing, and they had made a very deliberate choice about who was on that list and who wasn't. The exclusion was planned, calculated, and totally final. Every top outlet picked up the story within hours, and they were all running basically the same headline with slightly different wording, but the exact same message. The Sussexes aren't on the list. The Sussexes have been left out. Harry and Meghan won't be part of the royal tours. Page 6 broke it down first, with multiple sources saying Harry and Meghan are getting left out in the cold for the celebrations. Other big-name publications started digging deeper, reaching out to their contacts, asking questions, trying to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes and whether there was any chance this might change.
do they belong there, Rita? Do they really belong there?
I don't think so. I love jam.
And the answer kept coming back the same from every direction. They're not invited, they're not included, they're not even being considered as a backup option or a last-minute addition. The palace was moving forward with these ridiculously big American tours that would dominate the news cycle for months. And the two people who actually live in America full-time, who've built their entire post-royal life on American soil, weren't part of the plan at all, not even remotely. Listen, Meghan, within hours of this news breaking, something shifted in a manner that nobody really anticipated. The conversation started changing in a style that had to really sting if you were Harry and Meghan watching this unfold. At first, when the news initially dropped, people were genuinely surprised, asking reasonable questions like, wait, why weren't they included? Or is there some kind of conflict we don't know about? But then, almost like watching dominoes fall, that question morphed into something far harsher and more cutting.
Want doesn't always mean getting what you need. He's isolated, irrelevant, and watching his worst nightmare unfold in real time. Here's where the knife really...
It became, why would they be? You see the difference there? That's brutal as hell. That shift in tone says everything about how the public perception has changed. The narrative went from curiosity and confusion to outright dismissal faster than anyone expected. The couple who used to dominate every magazine cover, who had the entire world watching their every move, who could generate headlines simply by showing up somewhere, were suddenly being treated like they didn't matter anymore, like they were irrelevant. And the worst part, the world was saying it out loud in articles, on social media, in conversations happening everywhere. There was no sugarcoating it anymore. Now, here's the thing. When news like this breaks, there's usually a pattern to how people react. First comes the shock, then the questions, then eventually some kind of explanation or justification. But what happened with Harry and Meghan was different. The shift in public opinion didn't occur gradually over weeks or months. Things moved fast, like scary fast.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have just wrapped up a 3-day visit to Nigeria, and I have just wrapped up a weekend of getting engaged.
And the way the conversation changed tells you everything you need to know about where they stand right now. At first, when folks saw they weren't on the list, the immediate reaction was confusion mixed with surprise. Social media lit up with everyone asking, wait, why weren't they included? Royal commentators were speculating about possible reasons, wondering if there'd been some kind of scheduling conflict or family tension nobody knew about. The initial vibe was curiosity. Folks genuinely wanted to understand the situation. But then the tone changed, and it changed hard. Within a day or two, that whole conversation transformed into a totally different beast. It went from why weren't they included to why would they be? You catch how wild that is? It's not some small change in wording. This is a total flip in perspective. When someone asks the first question, they assume Harry and Meghan should have been there. The second question, it assumes they shouldn't.
Being the royal family again. This was Harry running back to them. After years of interviews, tell-all books, and tearful...
And when the public starts asking that version, you know you've got a problem, a big problem. See, the couple once dominating every single magazine cover with photographers camping outside their house and making headlines simply by being seen at a coffee shop suddenly became background noise. And I don't mean that as an insult. I'm being real about how things changed. The media coverage transformed. The public interest moved on. They became a footnote in someone else's narrative instead of being the main headline. It's a harsh reality to face when you've spent years being the center of attention. American event organizers started making comments too, and what they were saying painted a pretty clear picture. Sources kept mentioning how they wanted stability for these tours. People spoke about clean optics and making sure everything went smoothly without unnecessary complications or distractions. Now, they never said Harry and Meghan's names directly in these quotes.
Meghan Markle, they're reportedly...
The fallout didn't stop at the headlines. Within hours, the narrative had shifted from surprise.
But come on, we all knew exactly what they meant. When you're planning an event this massive for America's 250th birthday, everything needs to run like clockwork. There's a need for predictability. The organizers needed folks who won't create chaos or generate the wrong kind of headlines. And here's where it gets more telling. Entertainment insiders, folks who usually live for drama and conflict because it drives clicks and ratings, were actually relieved, like genuinely glad that the whole situation wasn't going to be part of this tour. Think about that for a second. The entertainment industry thrives on drama. That's literally how they make money. But they were tired of it. They wanted a break from the constant back and forth and the endless headlines. When folks who profit from your chaos are exhausted by it, that says everything. For Meghan, this had to be especially brutal. The States should have been where she had home turf advantage, the territory where she had the upper hand. She's from the US. She knows this country.
After say, a little bit contrived.
You're not buying into the authenticity.
As per usual, yes.
She built an entire persona around being the modern woman from the States who brought a fresh perspective to the monarchy. This was meant to be where she shined, the moment everyone would see what she could do, the crowd that would get it. And instead, she's in Montecito, watching the biggest event in the world being assembled, seeing all the pieces fall into place, observing the media get excited about royal visits to the US. And nothing has anything to do with her. She's on the outside looking in, forced to witness the show happen without her. That's gotta hurt in ways most folks can't fathom. But while all this royal tour drama was unfolding, another layer was happening behind the scenes that made the situation so much worse. See, Harry and Meghan's entire business empire wasn't simply struggling, it was actively crumbling in real time, and the timing couldn't have been more brutal. Right as they needed a win, good news, anything to show they were thriving on their own.
Hollywood currency. The entertainment industry runs on access, prestige, and relevance. Harry and Meghan's entire pitch to studios, streaming services.
Things started falling apart at once. Let's talk about Netflix first. Remember when that deal was announced? It was huge news. Hundreds of millions of dollars, the streaming giant betting big on the Sussex brand, the whole world thinking this was going to be the golden ticket. The initial documentary they put out got a lot of attention, created buzz, dominated headlines for weeks. But then a weird shift happened. After that first wave of interest died down, Netflix simply went silent. Like, eerily silent. There were no big announcements about new projects, zero exciting reveals about what's coming next. Pure silence. And here's what folks in the industry were saying off the record. Executives stopped talking about potential and possibility. Instead, they started using a different word: exhaustion.
Colors of the Nigerian flag. We love to see flag dressing, even though not a royal tour. They then traveled to the Kaduna state where
Sources close to the situation mentioned how there was this sense of fatigue around working with the couple. Not necessarily because of anything specific, simply this general feeling that the energy and excitement that was there at the beginning had completely evaporated. A streaming platform worth billions stopping hyping your projects? That's not a good sign. Going from promoting you constantly to barely mentioning your name tells you a shift happened in a serious way. Then came the Spotify situation, and honestly, it was way more devastating. Spotify didn't simply quietly end the partnership like Netflix seemed to be doing. They straight up pulled the plug for all to see. The deal ended, and the whole world knew it. But what made it so much worse was what happened next. A top executive at Spotify went on the record, on air, and used a word you just don't come back from easily.
Across the Atlantic. And let me tell you, the shockwaves are still reverberating through Montecito. Multiple sources have confirmed to Page 6 that the
grifters. He called them grifters. Not in a leaked email or a private conversation leaking out, but out in the open where anybody could hear it. This is the burn sticking forever. This is the quote following you around eternally in search results and headline archives. Now, while both of these huge deals were either dying quietly or exploding out in the open, Meghan decided to launch a new venture, American Riviera Orchard. The concept was lifestyle brand meets royal adjacent prestige, selling curated products with that Duchess touch. Sounds good on paper, right? Except here's what actually happened. The launch featured things like artisanal jam in fancy jars and monogrammed products that felt more like what you'd find at a boutique gift shop than a worldwide lifestyle empire. The woman who once spoke of international philanthropy, of changing the world and making a real difference,
was so lackluster, Tash. As you say, I think he's furious about what went on in Paris, but they couldn't cancel this event.
Was now packaging preserves. And look, there's nothing wrong with selling jam. Plenty of successful businesses do it. But the internet is undefeated when it comes to irony and contrast. Social media totally exploded with commentary. Folks were making jokes, creating memes, comparing her previous ambitions with current reality. The mockery wasn't only from critics or royal watchers. It was all over the place. Entertainment sites, gossip blogs, mainstream outlets couldn't resist pointing out how far the brand had fallen. From Duchess with international influence to jam seller, felt like a punchline that wrote itself. So picture this. Netflix is basically ghosting them. Spotify burned them for the world to see. The lifestyle brand is getting roasted online. And smack in the middle of all this chaos, right as they're trying to figure out how to rebuild any kind of momentum or credibility.
We think it looks like it was filmed at the same time as the other 2 seasons.
Yeah, so in 2024.
The palace drops their announcement about the American tours. The timing was almost poetic in how perfectly brutal it was. Just as Harry and Meghan needed things to go their way, as they needed folks to take them seriously again, the real royals stepped up and reminded everybody what actual royal influence looks like. The contrast between homemade preserves and state visits to celebrate America's birthday wasn't simply noticeable. It was devastatingly crushing. So while Harry and Meghan were dealing with all this chaos in their business world, the palace was quietly putting together possibly one of the smartest, calculated moves in recent royal history. And the brilliance wasn't in what they said or how they announced it. The brilliance was in the strategy itself, the way they structured everything to completely dominate America's media landscape.
The pictures of her on stage, they don't want you to see the footage of her storming off.
For months on end. Here's the plan. Instead of planning one single royal visit, which would generate buzz for maybe a week or two before fading away, they mapped out 2 completely separate tours spread across several months. Think about how smart that is for a second. It's not just one wave of royal coverage, it's 2 distinct events, each bringing a unique buildup, fresh media frenzy, and a totally new cultural moment. Round 1 happens, generates massive headlines, gets everyone talking, then just as that conversation starts to wind down, boom, here comes round 2 with fresh energy and renewed interest. King Charles and Queen Camilla were assigned round 1, and their role was crystal clear. They'd handle all formal events, cultural engagements, serious connections that build long-term relationships between countries.
Let's talk about Royal Up. That's the upgrade bidding system on Royal Caribbean. But first, I'm Charity. I'm not a travel.
It wasn't focused on flash or glamour. Instead, it centered on substance, on showing up and doing real work that actually matters for building cultural ties and ceremonial bonds. Attending cultural ceremonies, hosting formal gatherings, showing up in traditional and respected ways. Stuff that might not go viral on social media, but builds real, lasting foundations. Then months later, William and Catherine come in for round 2, and their job was completely different. They bring star power, contemporary energy, charisma that makes headlines around planet Earth. Kate showing up anywhere creates instant media coverage. William represents the future in a way that resonates with younger generations. Together, they deliver exactly what America wants to see from today's royals. Fashion moments, charm, relatability, mixed with dignity.
Attention, all of it will be focused on this monumental milestone. And who does America want representing the British monarchy at this historic...
Their who'll flood Instagram, dominate entertainment news, and remind everyone why the crown still captivates global attention. How they timed everything was completely masterful. By when William and Catherine's tour begins, Americans will have spent months reconnecting with the monarchy in ways they haven't, since Princess Diana made her iconic visits decades ago. Coverage won't just focus on individual events or specific moments. It'll tell this larger narrative of the crown reestablishing its presence on American soil, reminding people of history, tradition, continuity that the institution represents, qualities that Harry and Meghan tried to dismantle or move away from in their pursuit of independence and modernization. And how all this looks? Totally pristine. You've got 2 couples representing separate generations and unique strengths, united by a sense of duty and service.
To protect children from social media, even though she's pimping out her own children wherever she can, causing these tensions.
On the surface, it looks...
They're stepping onto American soil with confidence and grace. And there's no scandal trailing behind them. No documentary crews filming for Netflix specials. No surprise interviews being scheduled with major networks to drop bombshells. No manufactured drama or carefully staged moments designed to go viral. Just the institution doing exactly what it's always done best, which is showing up, bringing tradition and stability, and commanding respect through presence rather than noise. Here's where it gets beautiful. With the Sussex brand struggling to stay relevant, with their business ventures collapsing or getting mocked, with them scrambling to figure out their next move, the working royals are executing a flawless strategy that requires nothing desperate, nothing attention-seeking, nothing manufactured or controversial.
Meghan's holiday special is here. We are feeling festive, with or without the help of Meghan.
They're simply being royals, and that's enough. More than enough, actually. And Harry and Meghan will be forced to sit there in Montecito, witnessing this entire spectacle unfold, seeing America embrace the family they walked away from, observing the institution prove it never needed them at all. The palace didn't need to directly compete with them or even acknowledge their existence. They simply had to show up and let their presence speak for itself. Now, if losing relevance on a global scale wasn't bad enough, for Meghan specifically, this whole situation cuts even deeper. Because here's what you need to understand. America wasn't simply a place where she lived. It should have been her territory, her home turf, where she had a natural advantage over everyone else in the royal family. She's American, she grew up here, she understood the culture, the media landscape.
A full-blown reputation-shredding explosion that ripped straight through Montecito and left Harry and Meghan looking like they'd been
The way things work in this country better than anyone in the palace ever could. This is what the plan looked like for her, shining brightest, with all her connections and understanding of American culture, giving her the upper hand. Imagine red carpets stretching from coast to coast, journalists hanging on her every word, fans showing up wherever she went. The narrative was meant to focus on the American who conquered the monarchy and then came back home victorious, bringing that royal prestige with her. Sounds perfect, right? Makes total sense. But reality had something completely different in store. Because here's the thing that's got a sting more than anything else. Kate's the one capturing all the attention now. Meghan? Nowhere close. Every single time Catherine shows up somewhere, Kate doesn't just make news. She dominates entire news cycles.
Operation Salvage Royal Reputation continues to go well. In all seriousness, though, I know I dropped this photo last night.
Style magazines plan their coverage around her appearances. Major networks clear schedule blocks for interviews and special coverage. Social media explodes with commentary about outfits, statements, and how she carries herself. The level of genuine interest and excitement that Catherine generates is exactly what Meghan thought she'd be getting on American soil. And it's not just the general public paying attention. The style world is completely fixated on Kate. Designers are falling over themselves hoping she'll wear their creations. Style editors are writing full features analyzing her clothing choices. Instagram influencers are recreating her looks and racking up millions of views doing it. The kind of cultural influence Meghan worked so hard to build and maintain
that highlighted just how far Harry and Meghan have fallen. The conversation wasn't, why weren't they included?
Has completely shifted to Catherine. Kate's outfits sell out within hours. Public appearances get dissected and celebrated. She's become the style icon that Meghan once positioned herself to be. Media personalities who used to cover Meghan extensively have pivoted completely. Entertainment reporters, lifestyle journalists, even serious news correspondents are all focusing their energy on Catherine's upcoming visit. The excitement isn't forced or fake, it's authentic. People actually want to see her. They're truly interested in where she's going, what she'll do, who's on the schedule. That kind of authentic public enthusiasm is something you can't buy or create from nothing. And it's exactly what Meghan's been missing for a while now. Then you've got Hollywood, which should have been Meghan's stronghold. The entertainment industry was her territory with genuine connections.
Iced out. What more can you tell me?
Well, can you blame America for icing them out?
Genuine history, genuine credibility. But even there, the tide has turned in ways that must be totally devastating to watch. Major celebrities, A-list actors, powerful producers, influential directors, everyone's positioning themselves to be part of the royal visits, not scrambling for meetings with Meghan and Harry, fighting for invitations to events with William and Kate. George Clooney, who was at their wedding, David Beckham, who had connections to both couples, Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise, all reportedly interested in the royal tours, not whatever the Sussexes are planning next. And with all this happening, with America preparing to roll out the red carpet for Catherine and William, Meghan's sitting in that Montecito mansion with no cameras outside, no paparazzi waiting for a shot, no media frenzy building around her next move. The spotlight that used to follow her everywhere has moved on.
Yeah, so it just kind of, it was there. I watched it because we were going to talk.
The house that was supposed to be the headquarters of their American empire feels more like a quiet retreat where nothing much is happening. Everything she worked to build, what she said in that Oprah interview about the monarchy holding her back, promises made in those Netflix deals, plans outlined in the Spotify contracts, everything's crumbling. The American dream she envisioned isn't just coming up short. The whole thing's actively falling apart while someone else steps in to claim the territory she thought was rightfully hers. If Meghan's situation is painful to watch, Harry's might actually be worse. Because at least Meghan can tell herself she never really belonged to the institution in the first place. Married in, tried it didn't work out and moved on. But Harry? This is his family. Here's the world he was born into. Here's the life he spent decades building. Here are the relationships and connections that defined his entire existence.
Is usually optics. It's good optics for the royals to be seen engaging with their subjects in this.
And now he's watching all of it continue perfectly without him. Like he was never really essential to any of it. Like everything he contributed could be absorbed by others without anyone noticing the difference. This hits different when it's your own blood, carrying on traditions you thought required your presence. America, the place he chose as his new home, is about to roll out the red carpet for the very people he walked away from. His father will arrive commanding respect that comes from decades of service and dedication. King Charles will step onto American soil representing centuries of tradition and continuity. History's weight travels with him. People respond to that. Everyone understands his role and everyone shows up for it. Harry will watch from Montecito as his father receives exactly what he probably imagined for himself. The irony must be suffocating. He left to escape the constraints of royal life, moved to the country that was supposed to embrace him as his own person.
Harry and Meghan have fallen. The conversation wasn't, why weren't they included? It was why.
And now, that same country is preparing to celebrate the institution he abandoned. The timing couldn't be more perfectly brutal, even with deliberate planning. Then there's William, and honestly, this is probably the hardest part for Harry to process. His brother will arrive, bringing exactly that star power and charisma that Harry once believed they shared together. But William isn't coming like half of a duo anymore. He's coming representing the future king, embodying modern monarchy, being someone who stayed and stepped up when things got difficult. How they used to work together was the fun prince and the serious heir. Now, William gets to be both, and Harry gets to watch from California while his brother does the job he abandoned. The roles they used to balance between them, William handles all of it now.
world being assembled without her name anywhere near the guest list.
In the cold, according to sources at
The charm Harry thought was his unique contribution, turns out William had it all along. He simply let Harry think they were partners. And the worst part? William's presence alone, William's success in carrying the weight of both roles, says everything that needs to be said. Everything keeps moving forward like Harry leaving didn't even create a ripple. This has got to be the most brutal realization. All those years believing he was special, believing he was different, believing the monarchy needed him specifically. He probably imagined his departure would force a major reckoning, make them realize what they lost. Turns out they didn't. Operations kept running, events kept happening, charitable work continued. Every role he occupied got filled by someone else who was happy to do the work without the drama and the complaints and the public grievances.
To respectable broadsheets ran the same headline with ruthless clarity. The royal family is coming to America.
The machine didn't simply survive his exit, it barely noticed. 0 emergency meetings about how to fill the gap. 0 public statements about missing his contributions. All a quiet reshuffling of responsibilities, and everything moved forward like clockwork. Here's where it gets totally wild, though. Harry went from being the spare, which already felt limiting and frustrating, to being completely unnecessary. At least when he was the spare, he had a purpose, a role, a reason to exist within the system. He was backup, insurance, the safety net if something happened to William. That designation might have felt constraining, but it was still a legitimate function within the institution. But now, he's not even that. He's simply a former working royal who moved to California and complains about the family on television and in documentaries.
And a princess, the wife and mother of future kings. Catherine first came to public.
Everything proved it can function perfectly fine without any backup plan that includes him. The institution looked at his departure and essentially said, okay, and moved on. 0 panic, 0 attempts to bring him back, 0 acknowledgement that his role was irreplaceable. Because it wasn't. And deep down, he probably knows this is the truth he's been running from this entire time. Every connection he spent years building is being used by working royals now. Military relationships, charitable partnerships, international networks he helped establish. They didn't disappear when he left. They simply got redistributed to people who stayed. William handles some of them. Other senior royals picked up others. Work continues, relationships thrive, and Harry's name slowly fades from the organizations he once championed.
Hey yo, it's time for your headline of the day. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced out of the spotlight.
The people he worked with didn't follow him to California. They stayed with the institution because what mattered to them was not the individual wearing the uniform or cutting the ribbons. He's not being actively replaced so much as he's being quietly forgotten, which is somehow worse. Get replaced. You mattered enough to need a replacement. Get forgotten. The system barely registered your absence. Charity roles he used to fill are all occupied by people who remained committed to service. Invictus Games still happens, but even this feels like the last thread connecting him to his former life. And how long before this connection starts feeling strained too? Everything else he walked away from found someone new. Princess Anne stepped up here and there. Younger royals took on more responsibilities. Everyone adapted and kept going, proving that no single person...
Mood. Mother Markle is what? A whole mood.
Not even a prince is irreplaceable when the institution has survived for over 1,000 years. Harry didn't simply leave his roles behind. He made himself obsolete by choosing independence over duty. And now he gets to live with that choice while watching everyone else carry on without missing a beat. The freedom he fought for came with a price tag he probably didn't fully calculate. Independence from the system, also meant irrelevance to it. And there's no going back from that realization once it fully sets in. Now let's talk about Hollywood, because this is where things get really interesting. Here's what should have gone down for Meghan. The entertainment industry, the celebrity circuit, the glitzy world of A-list connections. She spent years building relationships in this space before she ever met Harry. She had contacts, credibility, insider knowledge of how everything works.
Did you notice Meghan Markle's odd behavior of forcing Harry's hand into hers 3 times? No one seems to realize their marriage might have already...
When they moved to California, the assumption was that Hollywood would be their natural home base, where they'd be embraced as royalty by another tier of power. But reality took a completely different turn. Get this. A-list celebrities are already lining up for William and Kate's visit. We're talking about the biggest names in entertainment. People usually needing to be convinced to show up for anything. George Clooney, sitting at Harry and Meghan's wedding, is reportedly interested in the royal tours. David Beckham, with connections to both couples and seeming close to Harry for years, is positioning himself for access to William and Catherine's events. Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise, these are legends in the industry, all making it clear they want to be part of whatever's happening with the working royals. Fashion icons are getting in on it too. Major designers dressing everyone from red carpet events to award shows are fighting for the chance to have Catherine wear their creations.
Go away. Like, just go back to the royal family. Like, do your things. Like, Meghan Markle, you'd think she...
Tech billionaires from Silicon Valley, typically staying out of celebrity culture, are suddenly interested because they understand what real influence looks like. There's this scramble happening, this competition for proximity to William and Kate that shows you exactly where Hollywood's priorities actually are. What they're avoiding, controversy or drama. What they're chasing, legitimacy, tradition, and prestige that only comes from genuine royal connections. And where does that leave Harry and Meghan? On the outside looking in, basically. Lucky for them, maybe some Malibu brunch with B-list actors and reality TV personalities. Maybe a charity event that needs their names on the invitation to sell tickets. But the major players, the real power brokers in Hollywood, aren't calling anymore. Everyone important in the entertainment industry has made their choice, and it's painfully obvious which way they went.
The Duchess of Sussex has compared herself to Nelson Mandela in a bombshell magazine interview. Meghan claims the South African...
This isn't about personal relationships or individual friendships. This is about alignment with power and relevance. Here's what Hollywood actually respects. Power. Real power instead of the appearance of it. Authority that comes from centuries of tradition rather than manufactured celebrity status. Influence that opens doors globally versus just generating headlines for a news cycle. Hollywood is a business, and businesses align themselves with assets that provide value. William and Catherine provide access for legitimacy, for history, for a level of prestige that money genuinely cannot buy. That's valuable. That's worth pursuing. What do Harry and Meghan offer in comparison? Stories about family conflict? Documentaries about how hard their lives have been? This might generate temporary interest, but it doesn't build lasting partnerships.
You've been shining bright since 2020, girl. I love it. And y'all better have a good day.
The entertainment industry doesn't reward grievance or manufactured victimhood. There's coverage, reporting, even profiting from this stuff in the short term. But respect, support, real collaboration, that goes to people offering something bigger to the table. And right now, the working royals have everything Hollywood wants. Sophistication that avoids scandal, glamour that isn't grasping, influence that doesn't reek of desperation. The contrast couldn't be more obvious if someone had designed it deliberately. Remember when Harry and Meghan imagined their freedom would translate into unlimited opportunities? How leaving the constraints of royal protocol would let them do anything they wanted. Turns out freedom without institutional backing is just being regular celebrities. And there are thousands of those competing for the same limited attention.
More scenes like this in the coming days of the Invictus Games. So it's crucial for you to follow us now on the Royal News channel to stay updated on every detail.
Their freedom turned into a cage of a different kind. They can do anything, technically, but nothing lands. Nothing has impact. Nothing earns respect or influence like they thought would follow them automatically. Watch what's happening to their social currency. Invitations drying up. Platforms getting smaller instead of bigger. The pull everyone assumed they had completely vanishing. Meanwhile, William and Kate haven't even arrived yet, and Hollywood is already rolling out the red carpet, so hard you can probably see it from space. The message is crystal clear. Power attracts attention and opportunity. Weakness, complaints, and constant grievance repel it. Hollywood made its calculation, ran the numbers, and decided that the institution matters more than the individuals who walked away from it. And that decision is about to play out in front of the whole world.
It's literally your favorite salad of all time.
Ooh.
Beets, black olives, fennel, anchovies.
So, what happens now? That's the question everyone's asking. When William, Catherine, Charles, and Camilla actually land on American soil, what's the move for Harry and Meghan? Just sit there and watch? Try to compete for attention? Make some kind of countermove? Because here's the brutal truth. There are no good options left. Every possible move they could make at this point makes things worse, not better. Think about it. Scheduling another big interview with a major network, timing it to coincide with the royal visits. But is anyone actually going to watch that? Does anyone want to hear more complaints and grievances when the real story is happening with the working royals? The public has already moved on. The appetite for their particular brand of drama has evaporated.
British royals' hilarious reaction to Meghan and Harry's wedding sermon. During Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding,
An interview that might have dominated headlines 2 years ago would barely register now. It would just look desperate, like they're trying to steal attention from people actually doing something meaningful. Or launching a fresh project, another business venture, trying to create buzz and generate their own headlines. But we've seen how that plays out, haven't we? American Riviera Orchard got mocked. Netflix went quiet. Spotify called them grifters publicly. Every attempt to build something independent has either failed or gotten ridiculed. Launching something during the royal tours wouldn't look ambitious or impressive. This would look desperate, pure scrambling from two people who can't stand being irrelevant, trying desperately to matter again. What if they showed up uninvited to some event where the working royals are appearing? Simply happen to be in the same city, make an appearance, force some kind of interaction or photo opportunity.
We would describe her. I just can't.
Eddie, would you use the word tosser?
Wouldn't you? Look, I think she has a very different.
But can you imagine the optics? Picture how pathetic this would seem. It cements every negative narrative about them being attention seekers who can't let go. It proves they're obsessed with staying connected to the institution they supposedly wanted to escape. The disaster of those optics would be absolutely devastating, worse than doing nothing at all. The real problem is that the public has already made its choice. Americans aren't sitting around wondering about Harry and Meghan's take on the royal visits. They're not waiting for the Sussex perspective or hoping for some kind of response. People are genuinely excited about William and Catherine coming. They're interested in Charles and Camilla's representation. Public conversation has completely moved on from Harry and Meghan. There's no bringing it back. Attention shifted, and it's staying that way. Meanwhile, that Sussex brand built over years is getting demolished in real time. Comparisons show them coming up short. Headlines about the royal tours remind everyone how real royal influence looks compared to their Montecito setup. The contrast isn't subtle, it's glaring. And the more the working royals succeed without them, the more obvious it becomes that Harry and Meghan were never the essential pieces everyone assumed. They were replaceable. And replacement happened. Here's the poetry in this whole situation. The palace didn't have to fight them. King Charles didn't need to make public statements. William didn't have to respond to any of the things said in interviews or documentaries. Operations kept going. Work kept moving forward. Plans got made, mapped out the strategy, and executed it flawlessly.
Are you all trying to get somewhere else? You're not getting too wet.
Royalty didn't need to beat Harry and Meghan. Royalty just had to outgrow the noise, and that's exactly what happened. The message coming through couldn't be clearer if they'd written it in skywriting over California. Freedom? Got it. Independence? Here. Escape from royal constraints? Done. Now enjoy it from the sidelines while the institution left behind continues thriving without them. Watch as America rolls out the red carpet for the family walked away from. Witness the world embracing the tradition once dismantled. And understand, finally, that the monarchy never relied on them as much as they relied on it. Because right now they're learning what happens when you bet everything on being irreplaceable and turn out wrong. And that's where we are. The palace made its move, Hollywood picked its side, and Harry and Meghan are watching it all happen from Montecito. Sometimes the biggest statement is the one you don't have to make. If you found this interesting, hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next one.